Choices in nutrition. Now, there are many factors that impact choices, and that's what we need to figure out and take a look at. So, what are some of these choices? Now, you obviously have the big choices of what do I eat? Okay. Now, that's not always an easy answer. Because when you're picking foods and think about choices of nutrition, there are many different factors that go into that. You have the taste of the food. Do you like it or not? Can you put up with it or just forget it? No way. Then you bring in the texture of food. Some people just can't handle certain textures. Other people love certain textures. But beyond that, it's about making choices, good choices and bad choices. Now, from a nutritious standpoint, you have the good and the bad. Of course, there's good and bad depending on what you feel like and what your mood is and everything else, but from a nutritious standpoint, there are good choices, like, hey, I'm going to choose to have a salad with chicken, and I'll have a low-fat dressing with that, or no dressing at all. You have some veggies in there, maybe put some carrots and some peppers in, and it's a nice, well-rounded meal. But then there's also, maybe from a nutritious standpoint, a caloric standpoint, bad choices. I'm going to have a cheeseburger and fries and a soda. Or I'm just going to have pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now that might sound good, but from a nutritious standpoint, you're not really getting a whole balance of all your macronutrients. So we have to look into these choices and figure out what's really behind them. Why do you make these choices? Now, a lot of it goes back to early eating habits. When you're a kid, you had certain things you'd eat, certain things you wouldn't eat, maybe things your parents liked to have you try. Hey, you liked that, didn't like that. But your taste buds are always changing. Your taste buds are always evolving. So something you might not have liked as a 7-year-old, all of a sudden you might like in your 20s or 30s, or vice versa. So trying new foods, if you haven't tried them in a while, might surprise you. And then again, it might not. It might be the same old result. But you never know. Again, it's about choices. And those eating habits from when you're younger, a lot of times carry over right into adulthood. So the things that you maybe avoided as a child, you might very well be avoiding as an adult. Maybe your friends are saying, hey, let's try this for dinner, and you just don't want to try it because you never liked it as a kid. Those are all choices and how things are built into your system. Now, with all those choices, some of them are based on where you live. If you're growing up in the Northeast, you might have a very different diet than if you grew up in the Deep South. Or if you're growing up in Europe versus in Asia. So cultural differences, as well as geographical differences, can make different choices for you. What someone considers a breakfast food in the US might be a very different idea of what they consider breakfast food in Japan. So as you start going through this, it's also based on where you are and what culture you're currently in. Now, with that being said, sure, you can make anything breakfast or anything dinner, but a lot of times you think of breakfast, you think of certain types of food. I'm willing to bet most people probably don't think of spaghetti and meatballs for breakfast. Maybe you do. Great, have at it. There's nothing saying you can't, but it's just those cultural ideals a lot of times of what you should have and shouldn't have for certain meals. Those can definitely impact your choices. Another choice is grabbing food on the go. Are you eating breakfast before you leave the house? Do you skip breakfast? Do you grab breakfast out on the way to work or school? Depending on what you're doing can also depend on how healthy and how much of a balanced, nutritious meal that will be. Because if you're grabbing something quickly on the go, stopping at, Dunkin' Donuts or Tim Hortons or something like that, you might not have a fully balanced breakfast if you're doing that every day of the week. But having something at home might help out balance things a little more. But then that comes in the question of timing. Can you set the time to do that? Do you have the time to do that? So it's not always as simple as just, I want to do this, but there's factors behind it. Healthy eating isn't always the easiest thing to do. It isn't always the fastest thing to do. One other problem there is the cost of eating healthy. Now you look at the cost of fruits and vegetables versus the cost of potato chips or frozen French fries or frozen meals. The convenience and the speed of those and the lack of nutrients might be something that's easier and cheaper compared to buying all fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and then having to prepare those into a meal. So cost and financial means can play a part in what choices you're making. Availability. If you're looking at fruits especially, fruits have different seasons of availability. If it's the middle of winter, it's not as easy and it's definitely more expensive to find a lot of the fruits that you might want to eat. But middle of summer, you can definitely find peaches or plums or corn or a lot of the different fruits as well as vegetables a lot more readily available and at a little bit better price. Now in today's day and age, you can probably find all these any time of the year, but when they're out of season, they're more expensive. Plus, it depends on geographically where you're located for what is typically available. If you're up in northern Canada or Alaska, you probably don't have as much fresh fruit, especially citrus fruit, as you would down in Florida or Central America. Because it takes more means to get the fresh fruit, the fresh citrus fruit, I should say, up to the Northern Territories. If you're on the shore, whether it be the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, you have an easier availability of seafood because it's caught right off the shores there and brought into the ports. But if you're in the middle of the country, I don't know, say Kansas, Oklahoma, Iowa, it might not be as easy to get that fresh seafood because it has to be shipped all the way in. You can probably still get it, but it's a little higher cost than it would be out on the coast where it was caught. So geographical location can also impact what diets are. Now, back to the whole cultural idea, that geography of different cultures. It's not just about what people think is normal in the cultures, but it's also based on the religions in those cultures. Certain religions will have more of a mindset of veganism or a mindset of not eating certain items. You'll have certain religions that don't eat pork or don't eat beef. The idea is these religions then will help dictate what the diets are for those individuals. The individuals following those religions, they can definitely have a balanced diet, no problem. They just get the nutrients from the items they're missing in different places. That's why a balanced diet, a healthy balanced diet, can look like many different things. So other choices. Well, I'm willing to bet you've probably seen billboards around, or you've seen advertisements on TV. All those can influence what you're eating or what you want to eat. Now, let's say you see an advertisement for something that's not the healthiest, but they make it look oh so good sometimes. You might all of a sudden say, I want to get that. Even though you know it's not healthy, they try to make it look amazing so you want to have that food. Now that can be especially interesting with children. Because a child might see something and say, I want that, and really push. And then the adult might finally give in to that, even though they know it might not be the best, but give the child a chance to try it. So again, choices can be very interesting sometimes of what you see versus what you get. But now those commercials, those ads, those billboards, they can be negative, as I mentioned, for something that's not healthy, but they can also be positive Maybe the billboard is showing a balanced diet, promoting health and diversity of foods. So it can be both a positive and a negative from what you're seeing around. Another choice is based on peer pressure. It doesn't matter if you're a child or an adult, there's still peer pressure. Maybe you can remember back to sitting in elementary school at the table with all the rest of your friends, and everyone has one type of food, but you don't have it. You'll go home and you'll ask your parents for that one type of food. Well, that was you thinking that you want that because everybody else has it. Fast forward into adulthood, maybe everyone at work eats out. They always order meals in or go out and eat, or you're bringing a brown bag lunch. Do you feel like you're out of place? Maybe. Maybe it doesn't matter. Or maybe it's the reverse. Everybody's eating healthy. Everybody's bringing their lunch in, and you're going out and grabbing a fast food. That might say, you know what? Maybe I should be bringing my lunch in. Maybe I should bring in and be healthier. So peer pressure can also be an impacting factor, negative or positively. Emotions. I'm willing to bet everyone at some point has had some emotions where you want to eat a certain type of food. There's those comfort foods you can hear about. Things that you just want when you're feeling a certain mood. Well, now those might be healthy, but a lot of times those comfort foods aren't the healthiest in the world. Does it mean you shouldn't have them? No. Occasion, moderation's okay. But sitting down and eating 5 gallons of ice cream probably isn't the healthiest in the world. So emotions can play a huge part in eating. From a single binge to all of a sudden a week-long impact on how you eat. Your health conditions. Some individuals have certain health conditions that will restrict certain foods and cause them to have a certain diet they follow. We'll deal with that more later in diets, but health conditions can definitely impact what you eat and how you eat, maybe even how frequently you're eating. Sustainability. Now, in today's day and age, sustainability has an impact on diets. It might be looking at, is the meat antibiotic free? Are the farming practices sustain the land so it can keep going for generations and generations? Is it heavy insecticide use that's causing damage to crops and other lands around the area? So sustainability can be also an impact on choices that people make in their diets. So while we all have the same basic biological needs for nutrition, how we get to that end can vary widely across everybody. Because there's many ways to have a healthy and balanced diet. There's not just one single prescribed way. Until the next video.